Dun 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 dun. Today's the day. Welcome back. Morning. Should be interesting. NFL music, yep. You got it. Well, I don't like a strangle because there's too much management behind it, in my opinion. I don't want to have to decide when to take the one leg off or the other leg off, or I'd rather just feel the FOMO and trade the continuation. Yeah, a lot of anticipation for sure, Josh. Definitely. Definitely. Thought on yesterday means nothing, right? Yesterday means nothing unless, right? Unless, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. It's all just a technical move before a major economic event, right? If inflation comes in higher than expected, then yesterday is all just a facade. Now, if inflation comes in lower than expected, I wouldn't say yesterday was your insight into that, right? I wouldn't say like, oh, yesterday gave us insight that inflation was going to be lower. I'm sure a lot of people are going to say that, right? A lot of, talking heads out there are going to say, yeah, you should have known, man. Yesterday we went up. You should have known. That's total BS. Yesterday was just a short-term opportunity, more than I expected. I will be honest. I didn't expect us to move that much to the upside yesterday. It was just a technical bounce. I mean, if you guys watched my video, it was on Thursday of last week. Was it Thursday of last week? Tuesday of last week? One of those days. But what we talked about in that video was how the market could just do a little dead cat bounce right off that demand and continue to be within this wedge, right? And then we have to see if the wedge breaks on CPI. So we were around here when I made that video, right around this area. And I was sort of saying, hey, we could either, break this demand and move lower before CPI, which I find rare, because breaking this support before CPI would be, a pretty substantial move to the downside, a pretty important breakdown before a major event. So in my opinion, I think the market just sort of wanted to stay sideways. That was sort of what we talked about in that video. I said you could probably see a little bounce here, maybe a little dead cat bounce or something of a demand hold, and then just have the market, be sideways into CPI. I think that's sort of what you saw, right? The market's just sort of wanting to be sideways into CPI. We did get a nice move yesterday, but, if you sort of look at what's happened over the last 2 weeks or last month, you're pretty much sideways, right? You're up a little bit at the top side of that channel, but overall, like, this is your move over the last month. So I think the market, just a technical bounce. I think that's all it was yesterday, right? You got your bounce, you got your previous rejections, turned it into support, turned it into support again on the ES. So just a nice technical bounce, more than I expected. I will be honest, right? You heard me yesterday. I didn't expect us to get much yesterday, but we definitely did push. So interesting day yesterday for sure. So today is today's CPI, guys. All right, major economic news today. The stream is gonna have to be different, right? That's just how it is. So I'm going to go over as much as I can before CPI. I'm gonna go over the expectations. I'm gonna go over the economic calendar. I'm gonna go over as much to prepare you for CPI here at 8:30. We'll look at the ES and the Nasdaq before CPI. We will not be looking at any individual stocks before CPI. So there's just no reason, because at 8:30 everything's gonna change. In my opinion, you're either gonna see, excuse me, you're either gonna see, inflation come in lower than expected and we get a nice big push, or inflation, you get three chances. Inflation comes in, actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, inflation comes in lower than expected, you get a big push to the upside. Inflation comes in as expected. I actually would assume that would be a bearish thing. If the market may react negatively, not as major as maybe one would expect, but if inflation is sideways, if it's as expected, there's still a case that the Fed can't start backing off, right? If the inflation numbers stay sideways and do not improve to the downside, right? If we don't move lower on inflation, that still could be taken as a slightly bearish scenario, because I think you need to see inflation start to decline. That's what the Federal Reserve needs to happen with the actions they are taking. So if we're starting to go sideways on inflation and their actions are not working, then you think, all right, I mean, if you think, everyone has their own opinion of this. In my opinion, right, it's up to you to decide. In my opinion, if inflation comes in sideways, I don't think the Fed will decide to back off, because that is not a trend in the right direction. I think this inflation reading is important to see drop. I think the market and Federal Reserve, I think everyone wants to see this inflation number drop. If it comes in sideways, maybe it's a non-event. If it comes in higher than expected, yeah, you're gonna get a nice old clap to the downside. So up to you to decide. That's my opinion as of now. I think sideways is flat to down. I don't think we move higher on a sideways inflation number. That's my personal opinion. Consumer Price Index, core CPI, CPI year over year, core CPI year over year. Big stuff this morning, guys. 8:30 in about 23 minutes. Okay. Tomorrow, very big as well, right? Federal funds rate announcement and Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking. So that's just as big as that's almost just as big as today. But today will give us some insight into what we think, the Fed is going to do, the decisions that the Fed is going to make, the tone that the Fed will have. So tomorrow, Federal Reserve. Thursday, jobless claims, retail sales. Friday, manufacturing PMI flash. And then you got the end of the week, which I would love to have a weekend right now, because this week is it's a busy one. All right. So let's just be aware of that. Next thing I want to bring up is all of our expectations. So let's pop those up. Here's the first one I want to show you. All right. So here is Consumer Price Index year over year. Right. This is the year over year number. This is not the core. So core is X food and energy. It's probably the contract change, the futures contract change. Evan, make sure you're looking at March 2023 and not December contracts. Consumer Price Index, CPI, year over year, right? So let's take a look at this recent trend. Let me zoom in here. Get this a little closer. There's so many ads on this website, but it is the best website. So last reading on the 11th of October was, I'm sorry, my bad. The 10th of November, the last reading, the 10th of November, was 7.7, right? 7.7. Andre, I don't need you. I don't need you in the chat to pretend like you know it all here and know like what's everything exactly what's going to happen. Please just either listen or please don't blow up the chat with your predictions that you think are 100% correct. Thank you. November 10th was the last CPI reading, and that was the forecast was 8%. The previous was 8.2, and the actual was 7.7. So this was a bullish reading on the last CPI, right? You had it come in lower than the previous and lower than expected. So that is a important, right? That is the first pretty much a substantial decline. We have been trending lower, but this was, if you guys look at that graph up there on the top right, you can see that was a substantial drop in the inflation number year over year. So that definitely was taken as a bullish scenario, right? Next, you can see the forecast is 7.3, right? That's a pretty impressive expectation to the downside, right? You can see that is a 0.4, if I can do math right, 0.4 drop in the forecast. You can see, if you look at these readings from the past, 0.4 is pretty high on the drop forecast, right? You can see here was 0.2, here was 0.2, here was another 0.4, here was another 0.4, and then here was a actually increase of 0.2. So a forecast 0.4 lower than the previous is on the upper band of the drop that they are expecting in inflation. So you do have high expectations for today's CPI, right? You have high expectations for today's CPI. If it does not drop as high in the CPI, right? If it does not drop as much as 0.4, I would expect a downside move, right? I would expect a downside move, right? Now, you can chat in the chat, but, let's keep it, CPI is a very unknown event, guys. We can't pretend like we know what's going to happen here. It's not viable. We just have to wait and see. So December 13th, 7.3, 7.7 was the previous, okay? Pretty major expectation to the downside today, 0.4. I believe if this number comes in higher than the forecast, you will see downside. If it comes in lower than the forecast, I think you will see pretty decent upside, because that is a pretty, if it comes in 7.2, 7.1, 7%, 6.9, I mean, that would be a pretty major drop in inflation in CPI, and that should cause a very big upside move, right? So we shall see. All right, that's the first thing I want to look at. The next thing I want to show you guys is this one right here. This is the core CPI. This is the month-over-month core. Actually, you know what? Let me pull up the investing.com core CPI year over year. Let's go core. Here we go. Okay. Let's pop that up. All right, core CPI. So core CPI is ex food and energy, right? Excluding food and energy. That's what your core CPI is. So, more ads. The last one was 6.3. The forecast was 6.5, right? So you got a decline in the last one, which was positive, right? That was a positive thing. You did get a decline in the last core CPI. That's excluding food and energy. The forecast here is another 0.2 drop. So that is another thing we'll have to watch. What's the core CPI that's excluding food and energy, right? That's another 0.2 drop that's expected here, all right? Now we're looking at core CPI month over month. So this month over month is a good way to see the short-term trends, right? Short-term trends, month over month. That's important, right? We got to see what those short-term trends are. The forecast is the same as the last. So this is interesting. Actually, you know what? Actually, let me compare this apples to apples with the not core CPI. So you guys can see here. This is regular CPI. This is including food and energy. Forecast is 0.3. The previous was 0.4. So month over month, they're expecting a 0.1% drop on the month over month CPI, right? So that's that. That's what we're looking at. And then on the core, you got month over month on the core, you got 0.3. Forecast was 0.3, and the previous was 0.3. So they're expecting this to stay pretty much flat. All right. So pretty much how I'm looking at this is if we come in lower, right, we'll look at these again after the numbers come out. If we come in lower, if we get 6.9 CPI, that's going to be, that would be pretty, I think that would be crazy. That would be a huge drop. The quickest way to get the CPI report live is to be in the voice chat or be in the live chat here today, is to wait until 8:30, and we'll get it as soon as it comes out. So in my opinion, today, if you get numbers that are lower than expectations, you should see a pretty substantial upside move. I think that would be the catalyst that probably pushes us through this long-term downtrend on the ES. It's probably the catalyst that gets us moving to the upside. Obviously, we have Jerome Powell tomorrow as well, which we'll need to sort of, keep that move higher. And then if we get a higher than expected CPI, if we get higher than those expectations, and if we get a higher, I think the biggest bear case today is if we get a number higher than the previous. If we get a number higher than the previous reading on inflation or on CPI, then that is definitely going to be your major bear case. If inflation increases versus previous reading, not something that you're not gonna be very bullish on that. So that's your big bear case. All right. All right, so I hope that gives you a little bit of insight of what's sort of going on today. What's, get an idea of if you're not really in tune with all the numbers going on. That I hope helps. We will relook at those in about 15 minutes. Let's spend a few minutes here on the futures. I don't really want to get into individual stocks here just yet because everything is going to change in about 15 minutes. So we're going to have to kill some time here. So I'm sorry if this is a little bit different than our normal live streams, but there's just no reason to be looking at everything twice today. So let's go ahead and look at this long term. Let's do some longer term analysis here on the Nasdaq and ES while we wait. So here is the daily chart on the Nasdaq. Now you guys know we've been in that long term downtrending channel, and we've had a little bit of support here, right? We didn't make. You can say we made it. We technically did make a new low, right? But this leg lower. Something that I have been sort of watching, this leg lower is not as aggressive as this leg lower was, right? This was a pretty aggressive leg lower. This went below the lows of the time, just about 15%. Now, the lows of this leg to this low is about 4%. So 4% lower on this leg than the previous lows. On this leg, we had a 15% move lower than the previous lows. Here to here was about 15%. And then here to the lows of this time around was about 4.5%. So this leg lower has definitely held up better than previous. I don't know if that is a sign that we, that is, something to definitely pay attention to. I think it is. I think that's something to be aware of, that this leg lower did not get as aggressive to the downside. It did not hit the channel low. Does that mean we still have to make that move, or does that mean that this is starting to find a base here on the market? Today will definitely make that decision or make that idea a little bit easier to decipher there. But you can see if we go to the 4-hour chart right here, 4-hour chart, you guys can see that we've been sort of sitting in this channel. So I'm going to delete that. And you guys can see, I'm going to delete the 20 as well. On the NASDAQ, we have basically been between the 50 SMA and the 100 SMA since the previous CPI reading, right? This was your move on the last CPI. This is the move that you got when CPI came in lower than expected. You got about a 10% move to the upside in, what is that? Is that 1 day? That's not 1 day, is it? 2 days, 3 days? Yeah, 2 days. So 10% in 2 days on the last CPI reading when it came in lower than expected, right? You got that big push on CPI, right back into these previous rejection points, and you've traded pretty much sideways since then. So the market has been very patient to understand, right, to just wait until to see what the next CPI reading is going to be. You've moved up on CPI. You've created somewhat of a demand here around this 11.5, and you've just been trading sideways in anticipation for today, right? Does it do it again? Or do we break this? That's really what we're watching. The big move will come on the outside of this channel, right? And I think today or tomorrow is going to be that catalyst. You either get your big push through this supply around 12,100, maybe up to that 200 SMA, or you're going to see the breakdown of this demand and the 50 SMA. So you're trading sideways. Previous CPI was right here. Big push to the upside, previous CPI, sideways until today. Today is the next catalyst. I would expect, a similar move, right? I would expect another pretty major move here if depending on what the CPI looks like. But I would expect us to see a break of either side of these channels, right? Either side of the channel high or the channel low. That's where your next big trade comes in. A big break above this channel high or a big break below the channel low. That's your next big trade. So that's the NASDAQ. Obviously, we can't do too much analysis here until the CPI comes out. So let's wait for that. Here's the daily chart on the ES. I know everyone has had their eyeballs glued to this long-term downtrend, right? You can see right here, long-term downtrend has been tested multiple times. The 200 SMA has been tested multiple times. And for now, right, we've been trading sideways after this leg higher on the last CPI reading. If we go to the 4-hour chart, you guys can see right here. So look, this is back to what I was talking about on the NASDAQ. Let's take a real quick look at these legs lower. So the previous leg lower on the ES dropped from the previous low, dropped about 12%, right? That was about a 12% drop from previous leg to the next leg lower. This time around, you dropped 1.5% versus the previous leg, right? You had a leg lower, but the low of this leg for now was only about 1% lower than the previous leg here, which you could actually probably make a case that this sort of found a pretty aggressive demand bounce off this low here from the previous leg. We did sort of chop below it temporarily, but in my opinion, that is definitely something that could be telling here on this market. The fact that this leg lower did not drop a substantial amount below the previous leg, right? Below the previous pivot. 12% there on this one, just about 1.5%. So something to take away there, something to pay attention to. I don't know exactly what, that doesn't mean, we're going to all-time highs, but it's something to pay attention to. Long-term downtrend, you guys can see that was rejected previously. What was that, 2 weeks ago after we had that Jerome Powell press conference? He spoke. Market went straight up off Jerome Powell. We rejected the long-term downtrend, and this excited the bears, right? This got the bears excited, right? This got the people that were getting maybe a little too aggressive. I talked about this in my video on last week. I think it was last week on Tuesday or Thursday. I forgot which day it was. Talked about, hey, yes, we did get a move. We gave back that Jerome Powell, but if we get too aggressive to the downside before CPI, we could just get a little bit of a chop here, and we could continue to trade within this range. And that's pretty much what happened. We got that downside move, right? Money to be made for sure. There has been plenty of money to be made on this downside, and money to be made here on the upside. So just another short-term trading opportunity to the downside over the last few weeks. Back to this demand, previous rejection points here, into support here, right? So pretty much just a perfect demand hold of around 39.20, held that, and then yesterday we got that push off. Now, yesterday, in my opinion, is just another move within this channel. It's another move within this little wedge that's forming below the long-term downtrend and above this previous demand. I don't think there's any meaning to this move, right? I don't think there is any meaning to that move. I think that is a short-term trading opportunity. I think it's a demand bounce that you could have traded. It's a demand bounce off this, and I think the market just sort of wanted to be sideways into CPI today. If the market would have broke this low before CPI, then that's making a pretty major low before major economic news. That just logically doesn't really make too much sense. Something we talked about on that video. Yeah, no, of course. Gold, I agree with you there, man. It's if you were early to it, right, then yes. But I can tell you, I know for a fact, right, and it goes both ways. It goes both ways, right? There was a ton of people that it goes both bears and bulls. There was, I'm sure, a ton of people that went long here, right, looking for the breakout, and I'm sure there were a ton of people that went short here at the lows, looking for the breakdown. So pretty much the people that are late were the ones that were faked out in this move, right? People that were, oh, here we go, right? Here we go. We're breaking the uptrend or the downtrend. Let's go long here, and then boom, and then here we go. What a fake out. I'm going short here at the lows, and then boom. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, right? You just had to take profits. You had to take that move. Obviously, there's money to be made. But, right, sideways before CPI, I think that's what the market always wanted to do. And today, we probably see whether, in my opinion, whether this long-term downtrend is an absolute market breaker off of CPI, or we see the long-term downtrend break for the first time this year, right? This would be the first major break of the long-term downtrend this year, which definitely could cause some type of squeeze, right? It could definitely cause a squeeze if we do see, that market push higher off CPI in about 4 minutes. I can't believe it. It's going to be 4 minutes until we figure this out. Yep. Let's see what happens here, guys. It's a long-term downtrend, right, versus this 39.20 demand. Which one wins? Do we get the big rejection here? Do we make a new leg? Or is this the first break of the long-term downtrend in this year? I think you will, right? If you see a lower than expected CPI reading, you will absolutely break this downtrend. It's gonna have to break. I mean, it's only about 0.5% higher. So yeah, I love that, Chris. I love that. I love that mentality, man. Money to be made both sides. That's the biggest thing. If that's that's what's most important. So let's I don't know what that was. Let's just do a quick showing for my fantastic NVIDIA. I love NVIDIA. She's my baby. Those 100 shares that I bought they're pumping. But who knows? Maybe today kills it. But I hope that NVIDIA stays above my average price because I've been so happy about that purchase in my IRA. All right, NASDAQ on the right, ES on the left. We're going to have to sort of scale out these charts because it could be a pretty major move. NASDAQ right, ES left. Let's pull up the data here. Let's start to prepare ourselves in about, let's clean this chart up. Appearance. Take the grid off. Yes. Get the volume on the bottom. No, I don't want that. There we go. All right. NASDAQ right. CPI or ES left. Gonna get the numbers on the bottom right here. Hopefully, I probably won't be first because you guys are always very much quicker than I am. But again, guys, right? This stuff is exciting, right? These moves are big. I have 0 positions holding through this. I have nothing but long-term shares holding through something like this, right? I just don't want to look back at a day like this and be like, wow, I really fucked up. That's really, to be quite honest, that's really what I try to stay away from. I don't like having that feeling of being like, wow, you really did screw this up. I just don't want to be around it, right? So I try to stay protective through these events. I have long-term shares. Of course, I would be slightly biased if we went. I would slightly be, I'd be happier if we went up for my long-term portfolio. Of course, I think everyone would. But if we go down, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to scalp, to trade, and equal money to be made. Netflix call, yeah, I mean that's been dead. It's probably like a cent, maybe less, if there's even a bid on it. I'd probably not even a bid on it. All right, we should be getting the numbers here in about 15 seconds. Good luck, my friends. If you held anything through it, may the odds be forever in your favor. Okay, initial pop. It looks like it's going to continue higher. That's the long-term downtrend right there. Yeah, that's a big one. What do we get? Well, let's wait for the numbers here. Where are the numbers at? Where are the numbers at? Where are the numbers at? My chart is not delayed. You watching the live stream is delayed. You're on YouTube, right? It's not real time. Core CPI 6%. Okay, that came in lower. Actual 7.1 versus 7.3. So it is lower than the forecast. That's a pretty big drop. That's a 0.6 drop. All right? Pull that up right quick. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty aggressive drop, no? Didn't I tell you so? All right, and Andre. Goodbye, my friend. Best of luck. That is literally the last. That's the biggest pet peeve I have. Don't tell me you told me so. That's just ridiculous. All right. So 7.1 versus 7.3. That's a very big drop, right? That is a very big drop. You guys can see here 7.7%, 7.1. Yeah, that's a 0.6% drop. Nasdaq's not halted. Probably just got stuck there for a second. So 7.1 versus 7.7, 0.6. The forecast was for it to drop 0.4. So that's a pretty aggressive downside move on CPI. That's why you got your initial pop to the upside, right? Let's continue to look through this. Let's go through CPI. Month over month. Let's pull that one up. I mean, wouldn't you think my friends know that I live stream in the morning? If they knew anything about my life. Here's your month over month, right? 0.1 versus 0.3. So decline there as well. So I would say yes. I would say this is a bullish CPI reading. Yes, I would say that. Right. This is a pretty aggressive. This is your biggest. Is this your biggest drop? Let's see. Let's look at the deltas here between these moves since. Let's go since. I don't know. What do you guys want to look at it since? So we can look at this since. Let's keep going back. Why not? All right, let's go back to where COVID started to happen. I mean, that was 2020, but so 2.6. This was a big pop in inflation here. 2 point, like what is that? 1.8%. 1.6% there. 5. That's a big pop. 5.5, 5.4, 6.2. So it continued to increase here. The biggest single drop. This was 0.6 here. This was 0.2, 0.1, 0.4, and 0.6. So this is your biggest. This is besides this one right here between June and July. Right, here's June, here's July, here's your even to your biggest drop on CPI year over year, 0.6%. All right, so that's that. Now let's look at some stuff. Let's look at some stuff. Here's the daily chart on the ES, and that is your first little pop through the long-term downtrend, right? That is your first pop through the long-term downtrend, and that is a very interesting move. So that is what we're going to have to watch. Does the ES stay above that long-term downtrend? If it does, I would say that is a bullish factor, right? If we continue to hold through that long-term downtrend. Now, just because we are through the long-term downtrend does not mean that we just avoid and ignore some of these previous rejection points, right? So as it is right now, 41.75, right? You can see right there, that is where this ES is starting to find a little bit of resistance here in the pre-market. So watch for that, right? That's your first level, 41.75. The next one I would say is, the big one I'm going to say is right here, around this 4,300. That's this big pivot right here. That's your previous high from the previous leg lower. That's going to be your major one up there, right? Obviously, that's a little bit extended from where we are now, but that is something to watch. So as of right now, yes, we are through the long-term downtrend. We are rejecting this previous high, though, so we cannot just ignore that level there, right? So let's watch this level here, right? That's 41.75. You can see actually that it pretty aggressively sold off from that, and this is now becoming a lesser than expected move to the upside than I would have expected here as for now. 41.80, 41.75 right there. That looks to be your level today. That on the 4-hour chart is right here. So 41.75 today, I'd put that line on your chart. I think that's very important. Keep an eye on that one. Okay. And then the other level that I would watch is right here. It's these previous highs, right? 4090, 4100. Does the ES hold this previous high? Right? That is your next thing that I would be watching here. Do you hold this previous high from last week? If you cannot hold above this Wednesday previous high from last week, this is interesting, right? That would be a little bit interesting. And maybe we need to wait for tomorrow to get an actual move. I did not expect this to give all this back. It's giving back a pretty decent amount. So, interesting. So, here we go. Lesson number 1. This is what I talked about. This is why I do not like strangles or straddles, because you lost. you can't manage it, especially not in the pre-market, right? If you would have taken a strangle or a straddle here, you would have had to sell here. You would have had to nail the top here, like absolutely nail it. And that's just not possible. Even intraday, even if this happened intraday where you were able to trade the option contracts, this is not easy to catch, right? It is not easy to know, hey, right here, I'm selling the call side here, right? I'm going to sell the call side right now, right? I'm going to try to manage this perfectly. If I call the sell side on my strangle now, I can lock in that profit, and then, I'll hold the put side, which is already dead, and then maybe I hope it comes back and try to win on both sides. But it's just too much. It's too much management, right? It's too much management. It's too much to know exactly what you have to do, exactly how to do it. And if you just open flat, right? Let's say you played SPY strangles, right? You're going to lose on both sides. And then that's just never fun. It's just not fun to lose on both sides. I'd rather just not make anything. But hey, you guys do what you want to do, right? I'm not here to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. I'm just telling you that, just giving you the explanation as to why, I don't like to do that. All right. So ES 4175, big push to the upside, right? That's the one to watch out for. And then see if we can hold previous Wednesday's highs. That's what I'd watch today, guys. 4090, 4175, right? That's what I'd look at. These two levels here, okay? NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ on the daily chart, we did break out of this little consolidation, right? So if we go to the 4-hour now, we can see we did break out of this consolidation off of CPI here today, right? We got that push above, right? Big push here above this previous double top, and that is the level I would watch. That level needs to turn into a support today. That's like your number one watch here today. Does this previous double top turn into a support right here on the NASDAQ? Does 12,100, does 12,070, this whole range right here, does it turn into support today? If you get a pullback, do we turn the double top into a support? All right. If we do, then I would say that this move can sustain itself right here. If we see this previous high turn into support today, I would say that this move can sustain itself. If we drop right back below this previous high, this is going to be an interesting next few days, right? So that would be what, if you're bullish today, I would probably look to see if we can get a pullback to 12,001 and see if that holds. If that holds, then maybe there's a play off of it. All right. So watch out for that 12,100 on the NASDAQ. That's the level I would watch. And then, of course, that 200 SMA above 12,005 right up in there. 12.5, 200 SMA. That's what I would watch to the upside, right? Dow Jones. Let's see how far the Dow Jones is off all-time highs. Oh, my God. Oh, the Dow Jones is just nonstop, man. The Dow Jones is, from the peak of that move, the Dow Jones was only down 4% from all-time highs. That's just absolutely wild. So what would I watch today on the Dow? I would probably be watching the C. If I go to the 4-hour chart here, really the most important hold, in my opinion, is going to be this previous high here, right? This 34,250. I think that's going to be your most important hold on the Dow, 34,250, right? Previous high here. I think you want to see that turn into support on any pullback. I think you're going to want to see 34,250 hold as support. I don't think you're going to want to see the Dow drop back below this previous high right here. So that's your previous leg lower, right? Remember we were talking about it on the ES? Remember this previous leg lower I was talking about up here at 4,300? Right? You can see that is where the Dow is. The Dow is above that previous leg lower back here from the 15th of August, right? So that's big. So that's what I would watch today. As long as the Dow can maintain 34,250, I would say you're in a bullish state, right? You're in a bullish scenario. Okay. Russell, not much on the small caps. I really don't like small caps. You guys know that. I'm not going to trade small caps. I would just watch. I would watch that 1900 area on the Russell here. That's a big level. All right. So NASDAQ 12,001, 12,005, ES 4175, 4100, and I'll go to the SPY for you guys because I know everyone wants to look at the SPY. It's the same exact thing, guys. Look at the chart. It's the same exact thing, right? 40.15 to the previous highs on Wednesday, around 408, right? 408, 415, right in that channel. Yeah, I mean, if we definitely need to hold 4,100 today to maintain this bullish momentum. If you fall back below these previous highs, that's going to be real interesting to me. So, yeah, I would watch 4,100. 4,100 is your must-hold today for upside. All right. Let's look at some stocks. And this is going to be just on my own basis because we're just going to go through some big tech stocks. Tesla, obviously, big push to the upside off of CPI. You guys can see. Look at the bottom that came in. Exact bottom. Exact double bottom right there. Tesla has been getting crushed from the, from Elon Musk's, behavior, whatever you want to call it, on Twitter. I personally have nothing wrong with what he's doing, but obviously, yeah, this is for another time to bring up. I'm not sure I want to get, I don't know the audience that is watching me, but if you want to talk about this, with me personally, you can reach out to me. But yeah, I think this is total BS. I'm definitely going to continue to be purchasing shares of Tesla. I don't think Tesla should be getting affected by Elon Musk on Twitter. I think that's total nonsense. So I'll continue to buy Tesla shares. I bought some yesterday. We'll continue to, and I would watch to see what happens off this double bottom at 167, 170. All right. Apple's been pretty damn stuck. You guys can see here, 158 to around 135. You guys can see here. It's been I would not trade Apple, right? Look at this. Look at this chop. Until Apple is outside of this chop, I would not trade it, guys. As easy as that. NVIDIA, absolutely awesome. I own my 100 shares of NVIDIA at 140. And this is just awesome. I mean, I'm up, $45 a share off 100 shares, up $4,500 on these shares. What an awesome, in my opinion, entry. I think, as you guys know, I'm irrational bull when it comes to NVIDIA. I think there's nothing more important to the future of our world than semiconductors. And I've been looking at these drops as just, awesome opportunities for the long term. Yeah, I've been adding as many NVIDIA and AMD shares as I possibly can. And, nice push today on NVIDIA. I would probably watch it up to here, right? Up to here around this 194. That's really your next channel high, right up in here. 194, 193, right up in that area. That's what I would watch as your next channel high. NVIDIA rocketing higher today over the 200 SMA. I would look up for that 190, 191, 192, 193, right? That would be my next move that I would watch. You guys can see getting a little bit stuck here. We're going to have to watch the overall market, but that's your next rejection point up there. AMD, big pop on AMD here. You guys can see we sort of turned that 69 level into support, which was actually, that was the previous level here. You can see right there. Turned it into a nice support level on the pullback. Nice little break and retest. You guys can see break and retest of 69. Right there, nice hold. right here, previous rejection. So you got your push off of it. However, 75 is big, right? 75 is very big. So watch out for 75 today on AMD. Home Depot is a one that I really wish I did trade. I wish I got it before, honestly, before CPI, but I want to just show you guys this chart. This is awesome looking. I would be watching Home Depot for more. Home Depot, push to the upside, rejection here at these highs. Look at the retest hold, right? Home Depot just held 316 like a beast. So very nice break and retest hold on Home Depot, breaking out of this previous high. I would look for maybe a pullback to 330, and I would look to long Home Depot here. I love where Home Depot's at. And it's breaking out of a very, very important double top here, right? Look at Home Depot on the daily. It just broke out of this level. So I am definitely going to be watching Home Depot over 330. Costco is another one that I'm going to be watching. Costco just pulled back to this previous demand around 485. And I think on a strong CPI, this could start to curl off this level. I like Costco as opportunity here, personally. Dropped off earnings, dropped to the downside. Costco, we all know, is a strong name. Previous rejection, into support, into support. Look at this little bottom that stepped in. Pretty much identical to this previous bottom, right? I'm going to be watching to see if I have some Costco upside margin here, for sure. Netflix. Yeah, Netflix at 330, guys. If the market is weak today, I would look for that rejection, right? If we do get some weakness today, watch for that 330 rejection on Netflix, right? This is the gap fill level. So just keep an eye on Netflix, 330. 330 is the big level to watch today on Netflix. Meta. So Meta ended up holding this 112 area, right? This whole general zone, this channel. We did get a nice little trade off of the rejection here yesterday, but look at what it did on CPI. So big CPI push. Watch these highs. 124. All right, that's your next watch. 124 on Meta. MongoDB for you, only for you, Chef. 4-hour chart on MDB. I'd watch out for this resistance that steps in around 230, Chef. 220, high 220s, low 230s. That's what I would watch. Possible rejections in that zone. What else did I miss today? I'm just going to go through the big tech names. Microsoft, nice push. Watch out for 268 right here. 268 on Microsoft, right? And the 200 SMA. That's what I'd watch on Microsoft. And then on Google. Yeah, Google, nice little pop back above this 95. Watch that $100 level, right? That's been the level that's been sort of struggling for Google, right around that 100 level. So watch that 100. All right, guys, I gotta head out of here. Right, I gotta do all these charts. I gotta do the analysis for the chat. So if you guys want to join that, it is down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream today. Obviously these days are always a little bit all over the place because there's a lot going on. At 8:30, I have no time to really prepare for a CPI event. So big upside, lower than expected CPI reading. Pretty aggressive drop too, 0.6. A 0.6 drop in the CPI year over year. That's a pretty major drop. So definitely a case for upside. You guys are seeing that right now. If you're watching some of these individual stocks, guys, watch some of the rejections above. I'm going to post those charts there in the Discord chat if you guys are a part of that. And hopefully that helps you guys for the day. Good luck today, right? Wait for your entry, guys. A move like this in the pre-market, that doesn't just mean you buy calls at open, right? That's not trading. So let's look for some pullbacks, look for some kind of opportunity intraday, try to take it, and get out of here unharmed. Tomorrow, Jerome Powell. Don't forget about that. Before you swing trade anything today, remember that Jerome Powell is speaking tomorrow, okay? All right, guys, have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.